Hey guys, thanks for hitting play on another installment of What the Lady J Says. I'm, of course, the Lady J, bringing you the sassiest promo analysis on the internet right now, and I'm talking today about in-ring promos. Last time I was talking about managerial promos, but today is all about the wrestlers themselves. Some of it's good, some of it's bad, and let's face it, some of it's ugly. But all of it has a little bit of potential, and we can hope beyond hope that it'll get better in the future. The first person that I want to talk about this week is Roman Reigns. I know a lot of you out there are big Roman Reigns fans. I'm a Roman Reigns fan, but he's not really delivering the kind of promos that I had hoped for him when the Shield broke up. I was hoping to see this strong, charismatic, very smooth kind of guy. He's very popular with the ladies because he's got a great look. He seems pretty confident in his body language. In the last piece that I wrote for Cage Side Seats, I talked about how he holds onto his vest. His stance is he stands back on his heels. He's very relaxed and confident. But when it comes to delivering dialogue, all that kind of goes out the window. He repeats himself. A lot of people have picked up on the fact that he used the term hair trigger more than once in a promo. That's not good. When you start repeating yourself, it means that the lines you were supposed to be giving aren't sticking in your brain, and you have to start reaching for things that you remember from past promos. So I think he needs to maybe sit down with a notepad and a pen and start making some notes for himself, some lines that are good to use in the future, things that he can reach for when he's having trouble coming up with his dialogue. But just to make sure that he's got a good understanding of where the storyline is always going, and think about the way that he talks just in his day-to-day. He's done several radio interviews that I've heard, and when he does those interviews, he's very entertaining because he's just talking from his heart and from his brain. He's not working off of a script or something that somebody wrote for him. You know, he's funny and he's interesting, and he does have this sort of standoffish kind of demeanor that makes you think like, wow, I wonder what's going on inside that guy's head. You know, he seems to really have this wall up. And that's kind of what the Roman Reigns character should have in the ring. He should be cool and calm and confident and make you worry. He's not worried because he knows he's in control. And when he starts to fumble his dialogue, it's very clear to the audience that he's not in control. So I think that's the real weakness that Roman Reigns has right now, is delivering his dialogue. But it's a very fixable problem to have. So hopefully somebody will kind of get their hands on him and say, look, dude, we're going to have to do a little work, and maybe they can figure something out for him. But in the meantime, maybe not reaching for the stuff you've used in promos before, because the internet is going to explode because people can go back and find that stuff, and that doesn't look good. Another person who I'm not quite sure where they're going to move with this is Stardust. I love him. I love him and Goldust together. I think this is a perfect gimmick for Cody Rhodes. He seems to be really enjoying himself. And I love this really bizarre relationship that's developed between the Goldust character and the Stardust character. Because while they clearly exist in the same universe, they are kind of different from each other. So sometimes they, hiss at each other and stuff, and that's fun to watch. But the interesting thing is going to be how they interact with other tag teams when they get in the ring. Because you want to see this relationship that you're enjoying in a promo carry over into their interactions with other wrestlers in the WWE. I'm really excited to see what happens when we get the Rhodes brothers in the ring with the Wyatts, because part of the Goldust and Stardust characters have to do with their physicality, their facial expressions, the way that they move is going to be, kind of strange. We've seen it already in some of their matches with Ryback, but to see them in the ring with the Wyatts is going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of bizarre faces. I think nobody makes weirder faces in the ring right now than Luke Harper, so to see him in the ring with the Rhodes brothers is going to be really awesome. But I hope that once they do get the Rhodes brothers in the ring together more, we're not going to lose those backstage promos, because those, I think, are really selling the character. I think one small problem that they're having right now is that Cody isn't always being picked up by the microphone, which can be problematic, but If they get him to project a little bit, it won't matter where the microphone is. We'll always be able to hear him. It'll always be awesome. But once we get him and Goldust kind of on the same level volume-wise, I think they're really going to be unstoppable. So I have a lot of faith that the Rhodes Brothers are going to be two guys to watch in terms of in-ring promos. I actually just mentioned Luke Harper, and someone that I want to talk about when it comes to in-ring promos right now is Bray Wyatt. Bray Wyatt had a lot of hype behind him when he first came to the WWE. That hype is starting to die. And that's a real shame, because he's probably one of the most, if not the most talented new wrestler or younger wrestler in terms of in-ring promos. He's unstoppable. When he started in the WWE, he had everybody in the palm of his hands. He really has that cult leader thing about him. He can draw you in. He knows how to hit these hot button words and phrases to really get people's attention. And that it's starting to lose its steam because we're seeing a redundancy. The storyline that he's got going with Chris Jericho right now, this idea of save us Chris and how he wasn't there for the WWE universe, starting to sound an awful lot like the storyline with John Cena. And how that kind of got started. So I think part of the problem is that they're not giving the Bray Wyatt character the dimension that he really needs to develop different storylines with different wrestlers, while all the while maintaining that sort of cult leader, extremely charismatic character. So I haven't completely lost faith that Bray Wyatt is a savable character. But I think that if Creative and Bray himself don't get together and figure out where to go from here, he's not going to be a favorite for very much longer, because even I have gotten to the point where I do other things when he's cutting a promo, which is not good. Friday Night SmackDown, I didn't even watch his promo. I had to go back to it later on just to see what he said. And it was all stuff that we had heard before. And that's kind of sad, because I used to live for his promos. You know, he was just, he got the same response out of me that Paul Heyman used to. Anytime he showed up, I was excited. I sat up, I was paying attention, I was ready for a great promo. Now I know I've probably seen it already. That's not good. So we'll have to see what they do with the Wyatts as a group, and what specifically they do with Bray Wyatt, and where he's going to take his character. Because hopefully they'll be able to do something where his promos aren't quite so boring, for lack of a better term. The other person who I think is doing well and has been able to maintain their promo work right now is Dean Ambrose. Everybody who follows me on Twitter knows that I'm a huge Dean Ambrose fan. I'm always hashtagging explicit Ambrose violence every time he shows up on my TV. But part of that is because he cuts great promos. He's not quite at Paul Heyman's level, but he's definitely getting there. He's confident on the microphone, whether it's in a backstage interview or out in the ring with a microphone in his hand. The first time I saw him cut a promo that really moved me was when, after Seth had left The Shield, and he cut a promo about rearranging Seth's face. You know, your nose is going to be over here. I thought that was awesome, and it never for a minute occurred to me that somebody else had written that for him. It just seemed like he was doing it on the spot. Everything was coming to him in a second. It was so rapid fire, and it had so much passion behind it that you couldn't look away. All of his promos have been like that. Every last one of them. Some of them have been a little more on point than others. There was a promo after they put him in the Money in the Bank match when Tom was interviewing him backstage. There's a point where he grabs Tom's shoulders and he shouts, "I'm going to Money in the Bank, Tom." And it was pretty clear in that moment that he was just trying to fill time because he got a little bit off track. But even in those moments, that was the thing that people talked about afterwards, was him grabbing Tom and shouting in his face. So everything that he does seems to be golden. So I have a lot of excitement when I think about where they're going to take the Dean Ambrose character and what that means for promos, because as they move him beyond his feud with Seth Rollins, it's only going to create more opportunity for really great promos. And I hope that they put him up against somebody who also cuts awesome promos. In fact, one of the things that I enjoyed so much about the Shield Wyatt's feud was him talking and Bray Wyatt talking, because a lot of the things that they knew how to feed off of each other. They were actually listening to the other person's promos in terms of what they were responding with. So maybe if Bray and Dean get to work together in the future, it might be helpful for Bray in terms of developing his character and getting his feet back underneath him in his promo work. So some good stuff, some not so great stuff going on with in-ring promos, but a lot of potential there and a lot of really awesome places for them to take these characters. So stay tuned for more interesting information about where these characters are going, and don't go away because there's always going to be more of what the Lady J says. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to come back next time and every time you see my face on Cage Side Seats.